Childhood is supposed to be a season of safety, a time when the world feels wide yet soft, where curiosity is not punished, where laughter carries further than fear. But history shows us again and again that childhood is not immune to the storms of men. When war arrives, it devours innocence first. Playgrounds turn to rubble. School books are abandoned. Lullabies are drowned out by the roar of sirens. It is here, in this collision between innocence and violence, that we find Anne Frank. She was born in 1929 in Frankfurt to a middle-class Jewish family, full of promise and possibility. To her, the world was at first as it should be, filled with stories, learning, and the warmth of her parents. Yet by the time she turned 5, the shadows of Nazism were lengthening across Germany. Her childhood, like countless others, was about to be rewritten by forces far beyond her control. Anne was not a soldier. She was not a politician. She was a child, with dreams, with quarrels about homework, with hopes of love and friendship. Yet her name endures because she wrote, because when the bombs fell and doors were broken down, she still reached for pen and paper. And in those pages, the mind of a child at war became a voice for eternity. To understand Anne's story, we must step back and see the world she grew up in. The 1930s in Europe were not simply years, they were a descent. Economic collapse fed bitterness. Nationalist rage sought scapegoats. Adolf Hitler rose, promising revival, but building his empire on hatred. For Jews, life became narrower with every law, every insult, every shattered window. Anne's family fled to the Netherlands, seeking safety in Amsterdam. For a time, they found it. She attended school, played with friends, wrote in her notebooks. Her life was not extraordinary, and that is precisely the point. She was ordinary, and so her story becomes universal. But history was closing in. In 1940, the German army invaded the Netherlands. New laws marked Jewish people as outsiders. They could not ride bicycles freely, attend public schools, or walk in certain parks. Yellow stars appeared on coats, branding children in the eyes of their neighbors. By 1942, the Franks realized they had run out of time. Deportations had begun. Families were rounded up, taken away on trains that never returned. Otto Frank, Anne's father, prepared a hiding place, a secret annex behind his office building, hidden by a movable bookcase. On July 6, 1942, the Franks disappeared from public life. Anne was 13. If you find meaning in exploring stories like this, voices from the past that still speak to our humanity today, consider subscribing. It helps this channel continue bringing you these reflections, and it means you'll be here when the next story arrives. The annex was small, suffocating, yet inside it Anne created a vast inner world. Her diary became her refuge. In it, she could be honest in a way that daily survival would not allow. Paper, she once wrote, is more patient than people. She wrote of quarrels with her mother, Edith, feeling misunderstood and dismissed as childish. She admitted to her stubbornness, her pride, her longing to be taken seriously. She compared herself constantly to Margot, her older sister, who seemed quiet and obedient, the perfect daughter. Anne wrestled with the feeling of being the difficult one, the loud one, the one who clashed with authority. And yet she also wrote about joy, about birthdays in hiding, about the humor that flickered even in the dark. She described the Annex with a mixture of boredom and gratitude. 4 walls, but also 4 walls that still protected them from the fate outside. Through her pen, the claustrophobic space became alive, with arguments, with laughter, with dreams that no Nazi law could silence. Her diary was not the story of saints. It was the story of human beings, flawed, frightened, but enduring. Anne's diary reveals a tension that still feels familiar to anyone who has grown up, the difference between the self we show and the self we hide. She confessed to Kitty, her imaginary friend, that she felt like 2 different people. One Anne was cheerful, playful, quick to laugh, the version everyone in the Annex saw. But the other Anne, the deeper one, was serious, thoughtful, vulnerable. That second Anne rarely appeared in conversation, but she poured herself onto the page. "I know exactly how I'd like to be, how I am on the inside," she wrote, "but unfortunately, I'm only like that with myself." This awareness, this division between appearance and essence, gives her diary a startling maturity. She was only 14 when she wrote these words, yet she was already wrestling with the central question of identity. Who am I when no one is watching? In the Annex lived Peter Van Pels, a boy of 16, shy, reserved. At first, Anne found him dull, even irritating, but as months turned into years, something shifted. She began to notice him differently, to feel the flutter of young love, even in a place built on silence. She wrote of their walks to the attic, where they could glimpse the sky through a small window. She described their conversations, their hesitant touches, the awkward beauty of affection in captivity. For Anne, Peter became not just a companion, but a symbol of freedom, someone who could make her feel alive in a world of shadows. Yet she also questioned these feelings, analyzing them with the intensity of a young philosopher. Was it true love, or simply the hunger for connection in isolation? Was Peter really the boy she imagined, or was she painting him with her own longing? Her diary shows not only the sweetness of first love, but the clarity with which she examined it, knowing that even this fragile joy was shaped by the walls around them. What Anne missed most was not comfort, not even freedom, but nature. She longed for the sky, for the sound of birds, for the feel of fresh air on her face. In one entry, she described staring at the moon through the attic window, drinking in its light as if it were a gift. Another time, she wrote of a chestnut tree outside, the way its branches seemed to whisper hope to her. As long as this exists, and I may live to see it, this sunshine, this cloudless sky, while this lasts, I cannot be unhappy. Her words remind us that beauty is not erased by war, it is only hidden. And for Anne, beauty became resistance. To notice the tree, the moon, the blue of the sky, was to declare that the world was still worth loving. She dreamed of walking freely again, of feeling the wind without fear. That longing is perhaps the most human part of her diary, the reminder that what we take for granted may be the very thing someone else would give anything to touch once more. By 1944, Anne's diary grew darker. She wrote of air raids shaking the Annex, of food running low, of her fear that the war would never end. Still, she clung to her ideals, writing that one must keep courage even in the face of ruin. And then, on August 4th, the silence was broken. The Annex was raided. The Franks, the Van Pels, and Fritz Pfeffer were arrested. Anne's diary was left behind, its pages scattered. At Westerbork, then Auschwitz, and finally Bergen-Belsen, Anne's words stopped. There are no diary entries describing her final days, only silence, only testimonies of others. Starvation, typhus, exhaustion. In March 1945, just weeks before liberation, Anne and her sister Margot died. She was 15 years old, but her diary survived. Otto Frank returned from Auschwitz, the only one of the 8 in the Annex to survive. Given his daughter's diary, he was confronted with the voice of a child who still spoke, even though her body was gone. Anne had dreamed of becoming a writer, of publishing her story after the war. In 1947, her wish came true. The Diary of a Young Girl was released to the world. Since then, her words have been read by millions, translated into over 70 languages. Her diary is more than history. It is philosophy, written in the hand of a child. It forces us to see war not through the eyes of generals or politicians, but through the gaze of a girl who wanted to fall in love, to feel the sun, to be understood. When we read her words, we do not see only the Holocaust. We see ourselves, our dreams, our quarrels, our hopes for tomorrow. Anne Frank reminds us that innocence, even when crushed by violence, can still leave behind a light that no darkness can extinguish. The mind of the child at war is not a statistic. It is not a headline, nor a date in a textbook. It is a voice, fragile, imperfect, but enduring. Anne Frank's diary is a reminder that even in the face of annihilation, the human spirit still writes, still hopes, still believes. She once said she wanted to go on living after her death, and in a way, she has. Her words remain a mirror held up to us. What do we do with our freedom? What do we see when we look at the sky she longed for? Do we, like her, dare to believe in goodness even when the world seems lost? Anne's story is not only about suffering. It is about the stubborn persistence of life, about a child's mind that, even at war, could dream, love, and hope. And that is why we remember her.